Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, complicated promises in American history. It's a promise that was born on a battlefield, and it's one that continues to shape our world right now.
So picture this. It's November 1863. The ground at Gettysburg is still scarred from one of the Civil War's absolute bloodiest battles. And in the middle of all that grief, President Lincoln gets up and gives a speech. It's less than 3 minutes long, but it completely reframes the entire war, promising that all that sacrifice would lead to a new birth of freedom. I mean, what a world-changing idea to drop right there. And that brings us right to the huge question we're going to explore. Did the Civil War actually deliver on that promise? This question, really, is at the very heart of understanding the American story. To even start to answer that, we have to get our heads around the fact that the meaning of the war itself, it changed, and it changed dramatically over time. This thing did not start out as some grand crusade against slavery. Not at all. Check out this contrast because it's fascinating. When the war kicked off, Lincoln's #1 publicly stated goal was just to save the Union. Keep the country from literally ripping in two. But as the war dragged on, it became something so much bigger, so much more profound, a fight for human freedom itself. The real turning point? 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. Now look, it didn't free every enslaved person overnight, but what it did was fundamentally change the purpose of the war. From that moment on, if the Union won, it would mean the end of slavery, period. So, the Union is victorious. Slavery is abolished. Now what? The country faced this monumental task called Reconstruction. And this was about way more than just rebuilding the South. It was about defining what this new birth of freedom was actually going to look like in the real world. Just think about that number for a second. 4 million. 4 million people suddenly freed from bondage, but with no clear path to becoming citizens, no land, no security. The scale of this challenge was it's hard to even comprehend. It was completely unprecedented. So, in response, the nation passed 3 truly revolutionary amendments to the Constitution, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. These became the legal bedrock for this new birth of freedom. I mean, on paper, this was one of the most radical expansions of rights in history. The promise was literally written into the law. But, and this is a huge but, as incredible as those amendments were, the gap between the promise on paper and the reality on the ground was just enormous. The gains of freedom, they turned out to be incredibly, incredibly fragile. And this really gets to the heart of the great contradiction of the time. On one side, you have these powerful legal promises written in stone, but on the other side, a brutal reality. You've got economic exploitation through sharecropping, you have widespread, horrific racial violence, and then you have a political backroom deal, the Compromise of 1877, that pulls federal troops out of the South, basically ending any protection for African Americans. And what came next wasn't just a struggle for rights. It became a battle over the memory of the war itself. The way the story of the Civil War was told would go on to shape the nation for the next 100 years. A really powerful and, frankly, deceptive myth started to take hold. It's known as the Lost Cause. This was a conscious effort to rewrite history, to paint the Confederacy not as a fight to preserve slavery, but as some heroic, noble struggle for independence and states' rights. Let's just break it down, myth versus fact. The Lost Cause myth says the war was about states' rights. The historical reality? If you read the Southern states' own declarations of secession, it was about preserving the institution of slavery. The myth claims enslaved people were content. The reality is that millions risked their lives to escape to freedom. It's just crucial to understand this rewriting of history. So why does any of this matter today? Well, because this story isn't just stuck in the 19th century. The fundamental questions that were raised during the Civil War and Reconstruction, about citizenship, about equality, about what democracy even means, those are the exact same questions we're still grappling with as a country today. I mean, think about it. The promises made in those Reconstruction amendments, they became the legal foundation for the civil rights movement a whole century later. The debates over who gets to be a citizen and what democracy should look like, they are still front-page news. If we want to understand our present, we absolutely have to understand these deep-rooted contradictions from our past. Which brings us all the way back to where we started. Lincoln's promise, on that sacred ground at Gettysburg. Was it fulfilled when the war ended? Was it just delayed by the failures that followed? Or is that new birth of freedom a promise that is maybe still unfinished?
a task that's left for every single generation of Americans to take up.